o'clock or after 4 o'clock on September the 14th. We have a workshop. So if you would, we're going to go ahead and try and proceed with this workshop and proceed as expeditiously as possible. Try not to be here beyond midnight. So, all right. Go ahead and proceed.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Sandro Garcia, CFO for Brownsville PUB. This workshop, we have included 2 items for this workshop. The first one being a discussion of the Black and Veatch cost of service and rate study and the results. The second being a presentation of the interim fiscal year 2010 O&M and capital budgets. On the first item, we do have a PowerPoint presentation to be done by Bob Brady, Director of Black and Veatch, and Andy McCartney, Project Manager for the Water Wastewater Study.
Thank you, Leandro. Thank you, Chairman, members of the board, Honorable Mayor. I'm going to talk about the electric, water, and wastewater rate study that we just completed. Basically, a comprehensive rate study answers 3 questions. The first question is, what are the overall adjustments needed in rates to fund each utility, their cash revenue requirements, and to maintain appropriate?
We do have a hard copy that we provided for you of the PowerPoint presentation and a book of the complete study if you want to follow the book. Yes, yes. The PowerPoint is inserted under the plastic flap.
Okay, so I'm on slide 2. First bullet, the revenue requirements answers the question, what is the overall rate adjustment needed for each utility? To do that, we forecast revenues and the cash revenue requirements of each utility for a 5-year period. In this case, 2010 through 2014. The second step is the cost of service phase, which answers the question, what is each customer class equitable share of each utility's revenue requirement? That gives us the indicated increases for each class. And then in the third step, we go to the rate design phase that develops rates that will recover the increases by classes and recover the overall revenues needed by each of the utilities. We did this study in close consultation with the finance folks here at BPUB to try to minimize what the rate increases would need to be. And to do that, we work towards each utility being funded on a self-supporting basis. In 2009, the utility took an extraordinary measure and funded 100% of the non-personnel operating expenses through the electric utility. So the electric utility in 2009 basically subsidized, you can see down in the lower part of that, $3.8 million. That's not the way to run the utility on a long-term basis. So by 2014, we've developed a series of step plans to bring the utility back into balance to where the electric utility provides 60% of the funding and 20% of the funding are provided by each of the water and the wastewater utility. So the subsidies are one of the reasons that are driving the rate increases over the next 5 years. Reduction in those subsidies. Yes.
Just so you're talking about 1.9 for each individually for water and wastewater? Including?
Yes.
That's what the subsidy was?
Yes.
You just split it down 50-50? Or?
Well, the policy is that those expenses are funded 60% by the electric utility and 20% by each of the water and the wastewater utilities.
Yeah, but you're attributing 1.9 to each category.
Yeah, 20% each.
So
It says
the electric,
100, 0, 0. So the electric utility is funding 100% of the water and the wastewater. Is that what you're saying?
yes, right there. That's their
Yes.
share, 100%.
That's what I'm saying, so it equals to 1.9 equally divided into just 50/50.
That's correct.
On top of that, the electric share is another 4 million, or 60% of 7 million. This is just the water and wastewater share.
So we're subsidizing.
Quite a bit right now. So you're looking at 4 million. Like,
That's, would have been electric share only 60%. And then this is the 2020, the 3.8 million, or 40%.
thank you.
Okay. And over the 5-year plan, we're looking to get back things in even balance. So by 2014, there's no subsidies between the electric and the water and the wastewater utility.
This is without any capital improvements, or this is with capital improvements, future capital improvements?
This is separate from capital improvements. These are non-personnel administrative and customer service expenses that are normally shared 60%, 20%, 20%. But because of the budget constraints and measures that we'd like to reduce with the rate increases.
So if we do capital improvements, it's gonna require more of a subsidy, no?
Now, the capital improvements
I
are
understand,
to
this is
utilities.
administration.
Right.
Where is, if we do more capital improvements for water, wastewater, that the impact fee doesn't cover, would you be getting it from the electrical side
No,
also?
no. That debt service would have to be met by each utility if we borrow to complete those projects.
So you will not borrow, or you will
And,
not,
right, and if we don't borrow, we don't have the current revenues, we don't
you
do it.
don't do the capital improvement?
Right.
Continue.
So the basis of the 5-year forecast, we started with O&M expenses based on the 2009 budget. The capital improvement plan was based on the water and wastewater 2009 impact fee study, and the electric capital improvement plan was based on the 2009 budget. So we tried to synchronize to budgets that were already in place and approved. And then operation maintenance expenses over the 5 years were forecast to grow at about 4 to 5%. And there are measures that Leandra's taken to try to reduce what those rate increases are. One example is 29 vacant positions are not being funded in fiscal year 2010, and that's a savings of $1.1 million. And we try to balance this whole revenue requirement forecast within the constraints that debt service coverage should remain a minimum of 1.5 times. To reduce rate impact, they've been using commercial paper to fund much of the annual CIP that's not funded from cash or surplus. But once the combined utilities reach $50 million in cumulative CIP, then that's their cap, that's the max they can have. So it's converted to long-term debt. Approximately $48 million bond issue is forecast in 2011. And the bond assumption is it would be a 25-year bond at a 5.5% interest rate with annual reserve payment funded from the bond proceeds. When we do the forecast, the end result is that the water and the wastewater utility requires a series of annual rate increases, basically through 2014. The electric utility, we don't see the need for any overall increase through 2014. It's currently adequately funded, and if the water and the wastewater utilities begin to pick up their piece of that subsidy that we talked about, that's the balancing act, and the electric utility will not need rate increases.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. For the purpose of viewers, the percentage increases, what does that equal to for the average household in dollars?
Well, Andy, I think, is gonna have some information on that in the second half. I'm gonna talk about the high level. Bottom line, under existing rates, if no action's taken, you're gonna have annual operating deficits, that's cash deficits, shown on those lines, $1.2 8 million in 2010, and that would be growing to 14.8 million in 2014. On a cumulative basis, out 3 years, you've had a cumulative deficit of 14.7 million, and by 2014, it could grow to 40.6 million. Under proposed rates, and we've identified the minimum amounts required under proposed rates. The annual cash surpluses are fairly modest, ranging from 600,000 on out to about 200,000. And over that time period, the cumulative surplus from those proposed rates is a fairly modest 1.7 million. That's in 2014. So bottom line, we recommend that the minimum rate increases that we've shown for the water and the wastewater be implemented through 2014. If you go to those recommended proposed rates, debt service coverage will still remain above 1.5 and fairly modest from 1.7 to 1.85 coverage. And we recommend that rate increases be approved for at least a minimum of 3 years. So the first 3 years of rate increases will be what our minimum recommendation is. And by approving multiple year rate increases at one time, it brings budgeting clarity both to the utility, to the city, and to the customers, and it avoids future larger one-time rate increases. And I think the key here is that in 2002, a multiple year rate increases were approved, and that worked well. In 2005, we had proposed multiple year increases, and the electric utility was doing probably extremely well due to the wholesale market and the margins that they were making. The growth was high, so there wasn't a need for that. But right now, you can't forecast that the electric utility will continue to be a golden goose for all 3 utilities, and growth is fairly problematic at this stage. So,
If I may, in 2000, I was here in 2004, 2005 was proposed a series of rate increases, and only the first year was done,
right.
okay? Then the commission refused to increase rates as recommended. Would it be safe to say that the shortfalls we're having now is because
On the water and the wastewater, the shortfalls from that have been pushed down the road to.
so we're not to 1.7, or 1.8, close to 1.8, because of the failure to adopt that plan back then. So if we don't adopt this plan, you're saying we could go up to combined $40 million shortfall. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, drastic measures would have to happen because you wouldn't be.
And this is important for the viewers to understand, because they go to City Hall, and you have 2 or 3 people go there and keep screaming, don't raise the rates. But we're gonna break the system, and the service is gonna be very poor, and we're not gonna be able to meet their needs. So if we either raise it, for them to understand, a little bit now, gradually, and have a smooth operating efficient system at the lowest cost, and go back to what it was in 2000 and that period of time, when we had the highest rates, no capital improvements, and no reserves. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I came on board in 2005, but the bottom line, the utilities are a significant economic engine for the city, and you have to invest long-term and plan long-term to operate a utility. So at least 3 years of rate increases would give management the control to operate the utility at the class of service level and complete the projects that they need to maintain that class of service level. It would also give clarity to the city. They would know what the transfers are and what they could expect for increases. And major customers would be able to budget because they would understand what the rate increases coming down the pike are. And that's particularly relevant to industrial customers who work off of annual budgets, or the school board who works off of annual budgets. They have some clarity about what the rate increases are going to be.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I was in the finance committee, and we had the benefit of going over the rate study, and appreciate you coming down again and explaining it to the viewers and the board. The two things that we're looking at this particular rate study, and please correct me as I'm clarifying a couple of points. But one point is that each component of the utility system, which is the electric, water, and wastewater, have to pay their own way when it comes to the non-personnel administrative expense items. Right?
Shared service.
So if you look at our combined utility right now, the electric assets equal to about 60% of our utility company, and then water makes another 20%, and wastewater system another 20%. So that's the percentage ratio that you're targeting, is that each utility has to be able to pay their way when it comes as to meeting the expenses on those administrative expenses.
That's correct.
So in this rate study, you're kind of laddering the percentages. Initially, you start off at 95 and 5, and then over the 5 years, the ratio of 60-20-20 is equally proportioned to what the utility is needing to pay. And so within those 5 years, the electric component is picking up those overhead expenses. So that's one point that this rate study is addressing. And then the other point that it's addressing is the capital improvement needs for the next 5 years, and what is required as far as rates on each of the components to pay for those capital improvements. And I guess we do have a lot of needs in the water system that are pushing rates to go up in the water system. As far as the wastewater, we are getting maybe some benefits from the stimulus money that's relieving some of that rate pressure. And then on the electric system, we have a capital improvement plan that is being funded from its own surplus that it's creating. So that's why you're not seeing the electric side requiring a rate increase, but on the water and the wastewater, it is required because of the capital improvements that are being required. And from the numbers that I ran based on your handout, the water system for the next 5 years is going to require $44 million in capital improvements. So that's a big driver as to why the rates need to go up in the water system. And there's not enough money that it's generating on the surplus side to pay for those $44 million in capital improvement.
That's correct.
So, I mean, I just wanted to, if I've got this correct, is that pretty much clarified some of the points?
And Andy can speak to the details of the water and the wastewater, but overall, I think you're right on target.
Okay, and also we have the financial advisor here. Because you do advise the city and PUB, are you in accord with this?
Yes.
So you understand that the PUB would have to go before the city and ask for rate increases
Yes.
in order to keep up with capital improvements
Yes.
needed, and also the administration of the
Yeah,
water,
what
wastewater.
we've been involved throughout the process. We've really urged staff and the consultants to be very transparent, both with this board and with the commission, about the drivers for the rate increase. And I think, Mr. Frias, you hit it on the head. It is largely capital. Of course, if we had to pay for these projects with cash as opposed to with debt, it'd be a much higher rate increase. We are trying to get all of the utilities to support themselves. And then one other item that's in here is the other than pension employee benefits, OPEB, which is required to be recognized. It's not required to be funded, but if you don't fund it, it's like kicking a can down the street, and you'll come into a bigger liability later. And I think that's about a $1.7 million number. You know, when you see the impact on the ratepayer, the electric system just dwarfs the water and sewer systems. So what would be a small amount of money for the electric system to generate, you know, in proportion terms is a big amount of money for the water and sewer to generate. So it is a large percentage increase. It's not as much of a large dollar increase. Doesn't have a really large impact on the customer, but you'll see it in the presentation.
But when I have you here, you understand that in 2005, we adopted a plan, and a delegation went to New York to get refinancing, and they promised to follow that plan for the rate increases to support the water, wastewater. And 1 year, they followed with the plan, and then they failed to follow the plan, and that's what caused the 1.7
Well,
shortfall.
a couple thoughts. That was said in the finance committee meeting, and Mayor, I took up a little bit for the commission, and I said, well, you know, if we could live our lives over, I wish that folks on the commission were not so urgent about no rates, but I also wish that folks at PUB would have been more urgent about the rates. And I think when folks at the commission said, we don't want to see rates, and PUB said, okay, well, you won't, I'm not sure that was the right thing to do. I think it's better if you go every year, you have a very transparent discussion, you talk to people about what's driving the rates and what's not, and between this board and the city commission, you make good decisions. But I think there were decisions here made, really primarily at the staff level, to avoid the rate increases. And I think, I personally would rather see small, regular, periodic rate increases than big surprises.
Mr. Jordan, if I may, the rate increases are being pushed by the capital improvement needs. I mean,
Yes.
Our utility system requires so much capital improvements over time, and there's no way that we can generate enough revenues from what we're getting from the
Absolutely.
ratepayers right now to offset those major capital improvements over time. So the utility systems here in Brownsville and I guess throughout Texas, they're always going to see rate increases because of the need of capital improvements. We have, I don't know how many miles of sewer lines and transmission lines, and every time one of those things breaks, it costs a lot of money to fix. And you just can't pay it from the money that you're making. The electrical system does make money, it does have a surplus, but it's generating enough surplus to pay for capital improvements here for the next 5 years. But like I understand from Mr. Brusiak is that all of a sudden we need a new substation. Well, the cost of a new substation on the electrical side is so big that you're gonna have to go back to the ratepayers and ask for a rate increase, right?
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. I agree with that being said.
So this rate study that was done really identifies that water and wastewater, well, wastewater not as much, but the water area has a lot of needs for capital improvements. And the only way that you're gonna do it is by raising rates.
That's right, that's right.
Mr. Brady, have you finished your presentation, or?
Yes, and before you leave, Mr. Jordan, because I want to make sure we get this straight, because, I mean, you advise the city and you advise PUB. I think PUB was transparent at the time when we went before the city commission. The commission just made it very clear that they want rate increases, and we had no choice, okay? And that's what's caused the shortfall. But if we adopted that plan and we derailed it, and now we have a shortfall because of it, there's 3 components, okay? One, of course, is electrical, okay?
Yeah.
And water, wastewater. But within the water, wastewater, there's also 3 components. You have your capital improvements, okay? Which requires a maintenance of the system, been overlooked over a period of time, that we need to do because it costs more to maintain, high maintenance, if you don't upgrade your system, okay? That's 1. 2, growth. That's a separate component which is funded by the impact fee, okay? Which is also along with rate increases. It's not solely impact, okay? And then you have your admin costs for water, wastewater. So there's 3 components to it within that system. What I'm trying to get at is, you as the financial advisor, we spend, I don't know how much, $200,000 for this study, John, whatever. We spend $250,000 in the impact fee, okay? And we spend $850,000 on the Imagine Brownsville, which also tells about all this stuff like this. That unless we have the support of the financial advisor, okay, to make it understand that we can't do nothing unless, the investment's worthless, unless we follow through. And there's serious problems coming ahead of us if we don't follow through. No matter who's here, we'll be gone maybe. But then it's gonna cause serious problems, not for the people that are here, but for the ratepayers and for the system. Okay? So we're gonna depend on you, okay? If you're gonna support this, and you're part of this, that you make it very clear to the city commission that you really don't have a choice if you want to have an efficient system that produces the best service at the least cost. You gotta invest into the system. And this plan is being presented at a very expensive cost to taxpayers and the ratepayers because they want us see an efficient system producing at the least cost possible, a good service. So we're gonna depend on you to stand there and support the system and make sure that we don't get derailed like we did with the 2005 plan that now has cost us short.
Yeah, no, we were real proponents, Mayor, of the restructuring and the rate increases that were required. We had a lot of one-on-one meetings at that time with City Commission, and I think, Mayor, we had buy-in. I think that at the time we did the restructuring, everybody understood that rate increases are required, and they were pretty comfortable. There just really wasn't follow through for whatever reason.
They understood it, we shouldn't have the shortfall 1.7. Somebody's not getting it.
All right, who else was next? Mr. Brady McCartney was gonna be next? Oh,
Yeah, he
is
has
that part
about,
of the presentation?
he has about a 10-minute piece to go
All right,
through
go
the
ahead.
details.
Good afternoon. My name is Andy McCartney with Blackham Beach, and I'm the project manager for the water and wastewater utility cost of service study. The primary revenues for the water wastewater utility are service revenues or revenues from rates. We've also got fees such as tap fees, penalties, such as your late fee penalties, interest income off of cash reserves, and other miscellaneous income. An example of that would be like the sale of scrap material. Your revenue requirements or cost are your operations and maintenance expense, your debt service, which is basically the principal and interest on your revenue bonds, as well as the interest on your commercial paper debt. Routine capital outlays, these are basically your miscellaneous small equipment, as well as vehicles, and then any cash revenue finance capital that you do on capital projects, and then the transfers to the city. The financial goals for the water wastewater utility were basically to comply with your debt service coverage requirements that was mentioned 1.5 times, have sufficient cash reserves, and have those self-supporting or self-sustaining enterprise operations for each utility. Our 5-year financial forecast for the utilities, we determined that the revenue increases are required because of increased O&M. Major driver was the capital improvement plan funding needs, also to increase your cash reserve requirements so that possibly in the future you could cash finance some capital projects, increase transfers, and also to meet your debt service coverage requirements. The key wastewater impact, which was a positive benefit, was the ARA, or American Recovery Reinvestment Act funds. There was $17.5 million worth of capital projects within our forecast period that were in the water, that were in the wastewater impact fee CIP plan that were eligible. They met all the requirements of the federal government. They were shovel-ready projects, and so basically you don't have to issue debt for those capital projects. The remaining amount of about $28.5 million, those were outside of the impact fee study CIP, so those weren't being considered to be funded through rate revenues or through debt service anyway, so those were being able to be accelerated. So with the aging infrastructure problem, not only at the PUB but also across the United States, utilities being very proactive in obtaining these outside sources of funds. On the other key impact.
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
Andy, just to clarify, on the stimulus money, again, you're saying that out of the 46 million, 17 million of that applies to the capital improvement plan for the next 5 years.
Yes, sir.
And then the other ones are further down the road that relieves the stress from the ratepayers and in the timeline of 5 years and above.
Yes, sir, in more than 5 years, so the utility is able to go ahead, instead of deferring those beyond the projection period, accelerate those now because they are shovel-ready and get those projects done.
I just wanted to clarify, because the question would be, why don't we credit the whole 46 million in the first 5 years?
Yes, sir.
But in our capital improvement plan, it distinguishes what were for the next 5 years and what was beyond. So that's why you're only applying the 17 million.
Yes, sir, because those were the projects in the forecast period.
Thank you, Ed.
So you're able to do a lot more with less. The other big impact on the water, wastewater utility study was the impact fees. Basically, the utilities collect these so that growth pays for growth, and they're not going to be utilized to pay for capital projects until fiscal year 2012. And for the water utility, it amounts to approximately $4 million, and then the wastewater utility, approximately $5.5 million. So you collect these fees, you earn interest on the cash as you receive them, then you're able to apply them to projects a little bit further down the road to mitigate some rate relief down the road. So those are another positive impact. Next, the rate impacts, and we looked at the residential class customers, the existing rates for a 3/4 inch meter, which is typical to serve a residential customer. Currently, that service charge is $9.47 per month. We're proposing to increase that to $10.25 per month. And I'm going to show you the customer bill impact here in the next couple of slides. The volume charge right now for the first 3,000 gallons is at $1.55 per 1,000 gallons. We're proposing to increase that to $1.72 per 1,000 gallons. And then the next 6,000 gallons, we're taking a residential customer up to 9,000 gallons, would be $1.71, and we're proposing to increase that to $1.90. The next 7,000 gallons is right now at $2.12 per 1,000 gallons, and we propose to increase that to $2.30 per 1,000 gallons. And then finally, for anything greater than 16,000 gallons, right now, a residential customer would pay $3.20 per 1,000 gallons, and we're proposing to increase that to $3.40. You don't have a whole lot of residential customers that are consuming water in that range. Approximately 6% of your residential usage is in that last block or beyond 16,000 gallons a month. On the wastewater side, currently the service charge is $6.84 per month. We're proposing to increase that to $7.25. On the first 7,000 gallons of wastewater billed volumes, it's charged at $3.13. So we're proposing to increase that to $3.30. And finally, for anything greater than 7,000 gallons of wastewater volumes, we're proposing to increase that from $3.40 to $3.60 per 1,000 gallons. Next is what we typically call the average monthly residential customer water bill impact. And shown on this slide, we've got the PUB, the proposed and the existing, and the difference. And then also, we surveyed some other utilities within the state and also within the Rio Grande Valley. As you can see, with the existing compared to the proposed, just for the water bill based on a 3/4 inch meter, and a customer that uses 8,000 gallons of water a month, that monthly bill impact would be $2.24 for water.
And that's for 1 year?
That's for 1 month for water.
Monthly.
It's a monthly, a typical monthly bill.
But what is the average?
Based on the first year increase.
Yes.
Okay, can you repeat that again?
Based on the first year 9% increase, this would be the monthly increase in the.
Which is how much?
The bill, $2.24. Up at the top, I've got a difference line.
But, you know, you gotta look at it as the volume is rated, which I think is still good rate.
Yeah, and then if you compare the proposed PUB rate, typical bill compared to some others, McAllen and Harlingen are very low, and that could be driven by their water capital improvement plan. But PUB compared compares favorably to Fort Worth, Dallas, Austin, and Houston. You can tell on the left side. Next, we did the same exercise for the monthly residential wastewater bills. And this time we assumed 6,000 gallons of billed wastewater. What we tried to do is look at the average on the PUB system, and that 9% increase on a monthly basis basically gives you a $1.43 increase in the monthly wastewater bill. Again, comparing to some other utilities, this time we've got Edinburgh and McAllen that are very low on the wastewater side. PUB is comparable to Harlingen. Again, these are the existing rates for these utilities in our survey.
Is Edinburgh and McCown being subsidized in great part by the general fund or something?
Yes, sir. We don't know that for sure unless we got in there and did a cost of service study, but very typically that's what happens when you see rates or typical bills that low, that there is some subsidization by the general fund to what we've seen across the state. Now, we've worked on, Black and Veatch has worked on, in the past, Fort Worth, Dallas, Austin, and Houston, and those are self-supporting type of enterprise operations where the general fund is not subsidizing those utilities. The next slide basically shows the water bill impact, then followed by the wastewater bill impact, and then the total bill. So the monthly impact on what we would say the average typical residential PUB customer would be $3.67 per month increase. And that's if they use 8,000 gallons of water through a 3/4 inch meter, and they're billed for 6,000 gallons of wastewater. Again, to compare the proposed PUB typical bill with the others in the survey, the others across the state, PUB is very reasonable compared to the others. As far as the valley goes, because Edinburgh has such a low wastewater, and McAllen kind of pulls their total bill down. And Harlingen, I think, had the low water, which pulled it down.
Excuse me,
It's
Andy.
still very competitive.
I
Yes,
thought
sir.
that our average water user was 3,000 gallons per month. Or is, no, it's 8,000? Okay, so this is a true indication of our average.
Yes, sir. I kind of calculate this independently of PUB staff and found that those were the averages for the residential customer class, those inside the city. In summary, the revenue increases that we're proposing are so that each utility can meet their debt service coverage requirements, meet the increased O&M expenses such as the other post-employment benefits that's come about, the increased capital funding. There is an infrastructure need in both the wastewater utility and the water utility, and also to facilitate the increased transfers, and so that each utility can maintain sufficient cash reserves. Again, in summary, for the water, we're looking at revenue increases of 9% in 2010, followed by 8, 8.25%, 6, and 6.75 throughout the forecast period. On the wastewater side, the revenue increases are proposed at 9%, 1.5%, 6.25%, 6, and then 7% in fiscal year 2014.
What's the anticipated increase, how much are we going to be receiving from these increases this year, these increases?
For the water utility, because we proposed that those rates become effective on January 1st, 2010, so you wouldn't see the full impact of that 9%, so it'd be like 6.75%. It would be $1.334 million in additional revenue. And on the wastewater side, the same effective date of implementation, we're projecting $1.366 million in additional wastewater revenues. again,
Anybody
that's,
have any other questions of Mr. McCarthy or Mr.
Question
Brady?
of council, Mr. Chairman.
Council?
Can you put that last slide back, please? Okay, they're recommending the rate increases in order to keep up with our system and maintain it from 9% all the way to 7% in 2014. If we adopt this rate study that's being presented now, which I'm sure we will, it's meaningless unless the city commission adopts it.
Right.
Can we go before the city commission and ask them to pass or some kind of resolution to adopt all those rates up to 2014? Or does it have to be done at the time when you're gonna do each rate increase?
On an annual
So
basis.
you have to go each time up there?
I don't think so. I think you can go, for the period.
Right.
It doesn't have to be.
That would make it a lot easier.
Yeah, either way.
That way we could avoid what happened last time.
Yeah, last time they only gave us 1 year.
Really? Okay.
And we have included an agenda item in the open meetings agenda, item 5, for your consideration. We could act on it today, or y'all could act, or come at a future date, depending on where you, whatever your wishes are.
Action, item number 5, the regular agenda is in relation to the,
Yes, sir.
What did this study cost?
I'm sorry? It's the cost of service and rates.
No, the cost of the study,
Oh, it was about $160,000.
$160,000.
The study actually commenced last fall. It did require a lot of data collection
So it's
and
an investment,
establishing a model that we can use from here on.
so it's an investment to keep our system going, but it depends on.
any other questions of the, on the workshop item? If not, we finished a little early, we can't start the regular meeting till 5.
We have a second item.
We have a second item?
Ah, let's speed up the clock.
You and them, yeah, okay, have the budget. We only have 15 minutes for this item?
I'll be brief. We have included a hard copy. We provided you with a manual that has under tab A, the PowerPoint I'm about to review, and then detailed information associated with specific line items or sections of the budget. We also have in the regular agenda an item for approval of this budget. Now, this is an interim budget. I'm going to qualify this. This does not include the 2.7 additional revenues that the rates would generate for water and wastewater. So we've taken the budget and adjusted it to where it doesn't reflect the rate increases. And I'll go over those items that were excluded in order to achieve that. Here in the general overview, a few things that impacted our budget were slow growth. As everyone knows, we have also had a decrease in interest revenues based on interest rates dropping down to the 0.4, 0.3 level. Off-system sales have been weaker this year, and we're projecting them to stay to be less in 2010. We are making provisions to include debt service requirements for a Texas Water Development Board loan of $13 million that will require approximately about $545,000 a year on debt service. We do want to proceed with this even without the rate increases, because it is a critical project at our southmost water treatment facility to remediate some arsenic issues. Our O&M personal benefit related increases pertain to post-employment health benefits, as mentioned earlier, $1.7 million, and then O&M non-personnel increases that were also requested by staff. What we have to do here to come to you with a balanced budget was to freeze 29 vacant positions, continue across the board 5% vacancy savings, continue with the 100% coverage of administrative and general and customer service non-personnel related expenses by electric at 100%, as well as the other post-employment benefits, 1.7 million, 100% by electric. And that is to, on an interim basis, to provide that relief to water and wastewater in the absence of any rate increase. And we've also done some additional non-personnel cuts. This budget does not include funding for new positions, promotions, merit pay. No cost of living adjustments are being proposed at this time. The funding for the maintenance pool continues at the same level of 2009, 1.3 million. We've added, we've maintained a little bit of money for personal market pay studies. In certain areas, we do have some classes, job classes that we rotate every year and study, and if there's a need to adjust market pay, this money that's being requested will accomplish that. We've reduced the operating reserve funding from $1 million to 500, down to 500,000, 50% cut, and this is the operating reserve that initially started at $12.5 million in '05. We've added $1 million each year. We're about $16.5 million. The internal target was to shoot for a 3-month or an 18 million target, but we're kind of slowing down on that as a result of electric having to pick up most of it. And then we did pre-fund, the board did act on pre-funding the Improvement Reserve Fund in August by reprogramming $3 million from the fuel sub-account to the Improvement Reserve. So that has provided relief in the 2010 budget. The breakdown of the revenues, the budget overall consists of $187,254,93. This is without the $2.7 million in the 9% increases for water and wastewater that the study proposed. Electric has a major portion, 75% of 100 or 140 million. Water, 19,765,000 or 10% of total revenues. Wastewater, 20 million or 10.81%. We do have other revenues, non-operating revenues. These are revenues from penalties, connection charges, some pole rentals, T costs, and other sales. A total 5.7 million or 3%. Our interest revenues are estimated at 1,062,000, down from 3.5 million in prior years. The breakdown for electric, the 140 million consists of 57 million, as you can see up here and to the right, as base rate revenues are 41%. We do have 74 million estimated for fuel and energy purchase charges, and off-system sales of 8.4 million.
The fuel and energy purchase, the figure you're using, a percentage, is that based on projections or?
Based on projection, fuel needs to support the demand requirements that are estimated for the fiscal year.
Okay, 'cause right now they're down, or, it's anticipated going up a little bit, thing.
And it does fluctuate, but they take more than 1 year average. They kind of normalize it, and if it pushes up demand anticipated for the upcoming year, it's based on other than just the recent months. We've experienced favorable prices in the recent months, but the projections are based on a more normalized year. So 74 million will support the fuel requirements and purchase energy for the demand that's being projected on the system in 2010.
But regardless, that's a pass-through.
That is a pass-through, yes. That is a pass-through, and we try to maintain a constant
So you'll adjust it as.
on a monthly basis, yeah. And we're enjoying a good rate right now for our ratepayers, 4 cents per kWh. It's been 4 cents or 4.5 in the last 6 months, so it's allowed us to be very competitive with the other utilities in the area. The 5.7 million non-operating revenues, as mentioned, penalties account for 1.8 million or 32%. Connection charges, 1.2 million. Pole rentals, 293,000. Fiber optic pole, 29,000 or 0.53%. Miscellaneous income, and then we do assess a 3% fee to the city for billing, for incorporating their garbage and their environmental fees into our utility bill. We've had a long-standing agreement to retain 3%, so that's going to generate about $754,000. Transmission cost of service, these are billings to the utilities based on the use of our transmission lines, will generate $576,000 there, and then other sales. Those are the other revenues in the lines. Where the money actually is scheduled to be used, a lot of pieces here to the pie. I'll start with the southmost at 4.7 million. This supports a budget that the southmost board approved last month that consists of both O&M and debt service. Personnel O&M, total 27 million. Non-personnel, 29 million. And we did see a slight increase in this 29 million as a result of some scheduled Silas Ray maintenance and repairs to the tune of about 1.2 million. We're looking at other maintenance services at the plants, at increased monies for hurricane preparedness. So there's a number of things here that account for the increase. We are requesting 1.3 million for the maintenance pool. This is a set aside, a contingency to be made to address unanticipated events or needs during the fiscal year. Has proven very beneficial in addressing major repairs or unexpected needs. 269,000 for market pay studies. Other non-operating expenses of 3.1 million. These are pretty much financing type costs, some amortization of debt-related discounts from prior bond issues, bank charges, mainly finance-related costs. Our debt service fund is 23 million or 12.46%. City net cash transfer is 5.5 million. Operating improvement reserves 2 million, and this is down from the prior years. We're making room here for 1.5 million to our fuel sub-account and 500,000 towards our improvement reserve fund, operating reserve fund, our operating reserve fund, then a residual of 20,000. CIP funding is scheduled at 9.2 million, primarily electric, and then electric, the fuel and energy costs both for the service area use and the off-system sales of 81 million. Briefly, I'll go over the main captions here on a comparison of the approved 2009, the estimated 2009, and the proposed 2010. Our net operating revenues are estimated, or budgeted current year at 180 million, projected at 171 due to the decrease in fuel costs, fuel requirements, and it's projected at 180 for 2010. Gross revenues, 189. Estimated this year through the end of the year, 177, and projected at 187. That's a decrease as well. Adjusted gross revenues, 102 million compared to 101 million. Here again, we're not including here any of the proposed rate increases for water and wastewater. On the personnel side, as I mentioned, we do have an increase of 1.7 in personnel to include for the other post-employment benefits, health insurance for retirees, and then for current employees once they reach that insurance coverage after they leave PUB until age 65. That is 1.7 million, currently included in the budget 100% under electric's budget. Non-personnel, 24 million up to 29. As I mentioned, some of that accounts for the plant repairs, primarily Silas Ray. We're not including any supplements for new position promotions, as I mentioned, or cost of living. So the net expenses are 53, 57 up on the 2010 budget slightly here. Total operating expenses proposed are 147 million versus 143 for the 2009 budget. We do have debt service we need to cover, which is going probably staying almost stable, 23 million proposed. Funds available after debt service, 16 million, 824, which will be used some internally and some for the city cash transfer. City cash transfer will be 5.5 million, and our internal uses will be 11 million, which are scheduled to go as follows: 500,000 to the operating reserve, 1.5 million for the fuel sub-account to mitigate any spikes next spring, next summer. CIP funding is 9.2 million, and then we have a small residual. That covers the O&M combined budget. We do have some numbers here for electric, water, and sewer individual budgets. I'll just bypass those. On this one slide, we do show the approved positions in the budget. We did have 521 positions approved for 2009, which included 44 new positions. We did opt to, early in the spring, not to fill them. all. We did fill a few that were critical, but we left 29 just because of budget constraints. So we will end the year with 479 positions, and we're proposing 492, and this is just a difference of those that are vacant. 492, which excludes the 29 that we're freezing and not funding in 2010. At the same time, we do show some percentages here compared to customer growth. Just for informational purposes, we did see significant increases in customer growth in some years as compared to staff or personnel increases. On the CIP side, our CIP total $73,542,000. I want to mention here that this does exclude. You'll see that our water budget is $5.4 million, very small budget for capital for water. In order to fit in commercial paper interest into the water budget, or in order to balance the water budget, we had to take out the funding of projects and thereby reducing the requirement for commercial paper interest. We're in essence leaving about 9 projects unfunded here in this interim budget. If we are successful with the rates, we can come back in and up the commercial paper debt service line, as well as the other lines that we didn't adjust, that electric is picking up 100%, the OPEB and the other administrative allocated costs. Electric share of the budget is $36 million, water 5.4 as mentioned, and wastewater 28.8. We did have room in the wastewater budget to issue debt and fit in debt service for the commercial paper for 2010. And then we have a little bit of money for vehicles and equipment that is being carried over. Funding sources for the $73 million carryover monies. We do have some, because our CIP are multi-year in nature, we do have some carryover money, $20 million from this year and a little bit probably from 2008 on multi-year projects that will be completed in 2010. Our new scheduled CIP funding is $9.2 million. Impact fees, we're projecting a little over $500,000 there. We still have some 2002 bond monies. We need to continue, or we will expand during 2010. 2005 bond monies also available, $1.9 million, and new debt, $38 million, primarily commercial paper. So the overall budget is $73 million for the capital. Here again, I want to emphasize that we're excluding water projects to the tune of about $9 million because we're presenting you an interim O&M budget that has to consider affordability of commercial paper interest. That concludes that budget presentation. And we do have an action item in the regular open meeting agenda for this for the budget.
That's item number 4.
Yes. Any questions? I'd be glad to.
If not, then we'll go ahead and conclude this workshop. We'll start the meeting. Well, anybody need to take a small break? If not, okay, we'll take a small break, 5-minute or so break, and we'll come back again shortly. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It's after 5 o'clock on September the 14th. Actually, Pledge of Allegiance is going to come later on, apparently. First item on the agenda is consideration of possible action on a letter request dated September the 10th, 2009, from the City of Brownsville City Manager for funds. This actually was put up early because I believe the City Commission had a meeting at 6 o'clock. So
You have that letter in your packet and open for discussion.
all right. Let's go ahead and do it. The letter in our packet is a request from the City Manager asking the Public Utilities Board to make a grant payment of $3,000 in addition, $3 million in addition to the $10 million that we are already giving the city on an annual basis, approximately $10 million. And so,
Mr. Chairman, would it be okay if the letter be read?
it's a little but I'll go ahead and just for the. All right, September 10th, 2009, from Charlie Cavler, City Manager, on the Brownsville City letterhead to Mr. Bruziak. The current financial crisis affecting the national economy is taking a big toll on collection of municipal revenue. The City of Brownsville's collections from the bridges are down 32% from 2008. Our sales taxes are down 5%. The city has also experienced a decline in other revenue sources. Even with budget cuts, the City of Brownsville faces a $3 million shortfall for the 2009-2010 fiscal year. The City Commission has been working very hard to balance the budget. City administration is firmly committed to not cutting jobs or reducing city services. The situation we are facing locally is admittedly not as bad as existing in the state of California, where thousands of teachers are being laid off, or in Arizona, where the state legislature is contemplating the sale of legislative buildings. However, the challenges we are facing are nevertheless significant to our city. The Commission and administration are working very hard to responsibly manage the budget while simultaneously providing the greatest value to our citizens. The Brownsville PUB is one of the city's greatest assets. The city regularly receives a transfer from PUB, which the city uses to provide additional municipal services. I'm writing to request that PUB provide to the city this year, in addition to the regular transfer, the sum of $3 million to be transferred to the city's general fund. I have already spoken to Noe Hinojosa, the financial advisor for the city and PUB, about this issue. Mr. Hinojosa has indicated to me that such a transfer might be accomplished without jeopardizing the financial stability of the Brownsville PUB. I am requesting these monies to balance the 2009-2010 budget during what can only be described as an extraordinary financial year. I would request that on Monday, September 14 meeting of the Brownsville PUB, an agenda item be presented to the PUB board considering this request. Please advise me at your earliest convenience should you have any questions or comments regarding this matter. Sincerely, Charlie Cavler, City Manager. Mr. Cavler, or anybody wishing to speak or make comments on this before we begin? Come forward, sir.
Chairman, thank you for having us here, members of the board. I'm glad you read the letter for me, so I appreciate that. It's self-explanatory. We are requesting additional funding in relation to our transfer in the amount of $3 million. We are having somewhat of a crisis with our budget this year. I think I've spoken to some of you about that, and it is really gravely needed. It's an unusual year, a challenging year, and we've done everything we can in relation to finding methods of assuring that our budget is balanced for the year, but based on capital issues that we are committed to and things like that, it's going to be almost impossible without assistance from our utilities. We appreciate any assistance you may want to give us.
You indicated in your letter that you talked to Mr. Hinojosa about the feasibility of this transfer, and it wouldn't affect our position. Can you indicate where these funds are going to be coming from, or which particular?
Well, I have spoken to him, yes.
Mr. Garcia, do you have any?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. What we can do is, it's our understanding that the monies would be required on a monthly basis, and it would be out of our 2010 budget. What we would do is establish an account under the improvement fund, and earmark on a monthly basis $250,000 for the total annual $3 million, and then wire it or issue the city a check as they identify the need to do so, to draw it based on their cash flows, or based on their actual realization of their needs, their resources, whether it's sales tax or bridge. To accomplish this, we would have to balance that item within the budget I presented by reducing our CIP by $3 million, and then fitting this city a sub-account for 3 million. And then we can come back at a later date and from other available sources, fund the 3 million that the CIP was reduced by.
From other sources we hope are available.
Yes, sir. But we would come back to make the electric CIP whole.
Let me ask you this, now, this is assuming that they have a shortfall for the entire year. But let's say later in 2010, suddenly economy picks up, sales tax revenue picks up. Are you proposing that we give you $3 million no matter what your situation is toward the end of the fiscal year, or?
Well, we have, if something occurs during the fiscal year that we see is not what we're projecting or is beneficial to our finances or our budget, surely we'll notify you all immediately, and we can have a forum of the PUB board.
So, Chairman, man,
Go ahead.
so in other words, if you don't need the money, you're not gonna use it, is that what
That's
you're
what I'm
asking?
trying to find
That's what
out,
you-
yes, I mean, if
The
they want to go
only
ahead.
reason I'm standing before you, which is not very often, is because we're in dire need of the money. It's for the fiscal year. When we start preparing and getting ready for the next fiscal year, we'll see what our situation is then. But we're talking about this fiscal year
Yeah,
coming up.
but I'm saying during the fiscal year, if the economy does increase, bridge revenue tolls increase, sales taxes increase, let's say by March or whatever it may be, you still have 6 months left, on your budget, then
If
you don't have to fund it, or
If there's
you
any
want to
change,
fund it
if
anyway.
there's any change to our situation, then we'll gladly notify you, and we'll be very happy about that as well.
What we would do is we would actually just maintain the money on a monthly basis on a PUB account established for the city. And working with the finance director, as it's needed, we would actually do the needed, transfer to the city or cash payment to the city. We're not just gonna automatically send them a check every month. We're gonna set it aside, and then it needs to be drawn against as the finance director sees the need for it.
I mean, if we did this, could we establish, no more than $250 a month or something like that, or?
We can establish that on an even basis, 12 months, $250 a month is what we'll actually deposit to that account. And if we go 3 months or 6 months without a draw, we'll have $1 million or $1.5 million, and then we'll just leave it there if it's not drawn against. If the city doesn't see a need for it, and I would work closely with the finance director to establish the appropriate reporting if we do arrive at a need for some type of interlocal and establish the reporting requirements. I would work with the finance director.
I guess one of the things is we're going to be drawing from some of our reserves to make our budget. City of Brownsville doesn't have the reserves they could draw.
It wouldn't be a draw against reserve. It would be the final bucket, one of the final buckets. As we progress, the revenues that we collect every month, after we meet O&M, after we meet debt service, after we meet our fuel sub-account, our operating reserve, we'll have that one account for the city. So it'll be surplus, it'll be residual. It's not, and it'll be from the collection or the billing of revenues every month. It's not tapping an existing reserve. So it's gonna be, if the revenues are there during the year 2010, we'll put it in the account. If it's not, we'll have to communicate that to the city as well.
Would this in any way jeopardize PUB as far as its standing or bond ratings or anything?
We've had those, a little bit of guidance from bond counsel and our general counsel. As long as we meet the flow of funds and the O&M requirements of PUB, the debt service requirements, and then our sub-accounts, after we satisfy what's in the bond ordinance and not jeopardize the investors or, the rating agency expectations of PUB, those are surplus monies, and we can we can work them to where we can fund the city. We'll need a little bit more legal counsel on that once we establish the account, but we have received guidance that it can be done, and as long as we satisfy all of the flow requirements in the bond ordinance, there's no room for any questions or from the investor side.
My question is, if we had those $3 million, or we anticipate the $3 million, why get a rate increase this year?
These are coming from electric. Electric is the one that's going to be funding this. Water and wastewater I had to do a budget excluding 2.7 million of rate increases. So it's gonna come out of electric. Even if we had the water and wastewater increases, that would just bring in some of the excluded items in those budgets, such as the OPEB, the subsidization, and the capital projects for water. So
This is in spite of the fact that we're not getting the profit that we used to get in electricity in past years. You're still anticipating having enough revenue stream in electrical?
we still anticipate some margin off off-system sales in 2010, but the immediate source of replenishing or making the electric CIP whole would be from this year's surplus. I'm going to be reporting later on that we have, as of July, 4 million in surplus after meeting all the buckets, the reserve requirement. What we can do is I can come back to the board and appropriate some of that to the CIP and make the electric whole, and then in the future budget, the 2010 budget, fit the city request as a month-to-month use of surplus.
I know the mayor's been chomping at the bit, so go ahead.
No, I just was a little bit confused here, because, first of all, I commend the city manager for working hard to balance the budget. He's tried very hard to do this, but there's a couple of things that I heard here that kind of, I think need to be clarified. I wish our bond counsel, Noé, were here, our financial advisor, Noé, were here, because in talking to him, it looked like he didn't understand people as well as I would like him to understand. Because when we were talking about the 3 million, I said, look, you gotta understand that this is gonna affect the capital improvements. It's gonna impact us somewhere. You can manipulate it and call it, change the flow of funds or whatever, but it is gonna impact somewhere. That means that we won't be able to meet those challenges that we have planned for, because we're gonna have a shortfall of $3 million. But he referred that, that the city did not meet the rate increases. It was proven in 2005, adopted the plan, and it found that it didn't need the rate increase, we're okay. But we did. As you saw here, we put up that slide that of the water and wastewater. It affected us by 1.7 million because the city didn't follow through with the rate increases. And now we're looking at a shortage of, can you put that slide up? If we don't get the rate increase from the city, that's gonna go from 1.7 million, because we didn't take action as we should have, to $40 million shortfall. So we need the city to work with us. It wants $3 million, but yet it won't deal with the issues that PB needs to deal with, so we can service the community and meet those challenges, and we're gonna be in trouble, if we do this. So, if you look at the history of the city, in 2006, it had a deficit, which you had to dip into reserves. In 2007, it had a deficit, which you had to dip into reserves. 2008, it had a deficit, which you had to dip into reserves. 2009, a deficit, which you dipped into reserves. And it's going to be the same thing all the way through, I think, 2011, because I feel that the commission is not willing, as it was not willing to help people meet the challenges to avoid these kind of shortfalls like we have right now. 1.7 from the water, 1.8 from the water, it's projected to be 40 million, because it will refuses to raise rates or adopt the studies that we pay so much money for. We paid, I think, $200,000 for this rate study. We paid $250 for the impact fee study, and we pay all this money for all that stuff, but the commission is the only one that has the authority to empower us so we can meet those challenges by raising the rates. They won't do it. So if they won't do it to balance their own budget by raising ad valorem taxes as called for to balance the budget, how do we expect them to help us when we need help? And that's a big concern. I, as mayor, have the honor of wearing 2 caps. As mayor, I tell you, give me the money and I'll welcome it. But I know it's going to cause a problem over here with PUB later on that we're going to have to face. We're already having problems because the commission will not face these problems, and it's not willing to face the problems for a year, to help itself, so, you know, I am for lending the money, okay, providing they agree to adopt a rate study, okay, in order to keep, PUB healthy, to raise the rates according, not that we want to raise rates, but if we don't, we're gonna have serious problems here at PUB. But I'm willing to lend them the money if they should need it, after they dip into the reserves and raise their property taxes to balance the budget. To give them the money, I think, and not them doing anything to correct the problem, next year's gonna be the same thing. Next year's not gonna be 3 million, it's gonna be 5 million. Because in 2006, I think it was less than 500,000, the deficit, and it's now grown to 2009 to 4 million. So next year's gonna be more than 5 million, 6 million, 7 million. So where are they gonna get the money next year? Unless they're willing to deal with the issues and the needs and the problems, which requires raising the tax rate, and doing all the things that Charlie's done. Charlie's done a great job in cutting expenses, freezing positions, yet no raises for the employees, like we're not doing no raises for ours here, but it requires more for the city commission to step up to bat and take the leadership role that it needs to take to balance the budget without having to, us giving them money that we're gonna have to, is what causes us harm.
Any other comments? Like Mr. Padilla, you were the finance committee chairman, I guess, so you'd like to make a, from your perspective?
Well, Mr. Cavler, appreciate you coming here today. I know that I had asked that you would be here to maybe answer some questions, but first of all, I just want to say that this is a tough situation for the city. It is a very extraordinary year with a recession that is one of the worst recessions since the Great Depression. And so I can understand that anybody that has had financial difficulties, that this must be a very difficult situation for the city to be in, and you're looking as a way to work with PUB to try to come up with a solution to try to help the city. I guess that was really the tone of your letter. And I think as a PUB board member, in my experience in banking, I like numbers, so I like to look at numbers, and I understand all the concerns that the mayor has as to balancing the budget. And I guess I just have a couple of questions. One question is that, do you all have a bond covenant that requires a reserve at a certain level?
We tried to go out on bond a few months ago, and we were informed by our bond counsel that we needed to apparently raise taxes to be able to borrow a certain amount of money. So we're going to reduce that dramatically. So we need to keep our reserve intact to be able to go out on things we've already committed ourselves to, which is the essence of running the operation of the city. We're talking ambulances and police vehicles and some equipment for the landfill, which is going to total, and some traffic equipment that we need, some traffic lights and things like that, which is going to total a little over $2 million. And so we need to make sure that we maintain all that right now to go out and be able to borrow that a certain amount.
And then I guess I don't know what that bond covenant that you have as far as reserves are concerned, but and I don't know if you do have one, but like in our case, I mean, legally, we had to look through all our bond covenants to make sure that we legally can find the money to try to assist and help you either through a grant or a loan. So that was my other question. The city requesting a grant or a loan?
Well, we requested $3 million. To me, it's requesting $3 million. We're not asking for a loan.
Sure, you're asking for a grant.
If
Okay.
if you want us to work with staff in relation.
Well, no, I just wanted to clarify if it was a liquidity need.
We're asking for an addition to the transfer, which would mean money turned over to the city for.
Okay. And so the money would be used to just assist in your budget needs as you go through the year, because I imagine every quarter you visit and you look at your budget numbers compared to actual, and then try to determine if you're on track, or am I putting words in your mind?
We need to finalize our budget, and it's today at 6 o'clock when we present our final budget to the commission.
But
So
when you,
we need to show a balanced budget.
so when you show a balanced budget, then, but how do you track as far as sales taxes coming in, property taxes
So
coming
we
in?
get a report on that monthly as to how well sales taxes are going. For example, the last few months have not been good. And that's why we can determine exactly how far we're off as far as the sales tax.
So based on those numbers, let's just say the numbers keep getting worse. Then the plan of the city would be to continue cutting expenses, because you can either raise revenues or cut expenses, one or the other. And I guess it's $3 million is to kind of help you in your revenues throughout, because you're gonna keep expenses the same way for the whole fiscal year.
We've done everything we can to cut our budget for the
So
next
you're
fiscal year.
at the bare,
We started long before the fiscal year. We started this year.
so you can't really cut any more.
Well, I mean, we have our budget consists of a payroll, which is 75% of our budget. Yeah, we don't have capital expenditures and things like that in our budget. You know, we survive in capital by borrowing money. We go borrow money to be able to maintain our streets, police and fire equipment. All that is done through either grants or we have to go borrow money.
Thank you very much.
No, well, I just,
Questions or comments?
well, I just have a comment. Thank you, Charlie Calvin. I know you're working very hard over there with the city, and,
Appreciate it.
you know, we definitely support Brownsville. That's why we're all here, you know, and the citizens of Brownsville. We do have, we understand where you're at, because I think that all of us that are in different businesses, we're running through the similar problems. So, actually, I'd like to make a motion.
Any other questions?
I would support, myself, because like I said, I have authority to cats. And I have supported, because I saw the problem coming in 2007, with all these things, we have shortages. There's no bond covenant, to answer your question, that requires a minimum. And in my discussion with the finance director, I was told that if we happen to dig with the reserves, which are 11.3 million right now, I think that's what we have. But I will go back to the commission and make a recommendation, and I'll support. And people will have to understand that we need the 2 cents property sales tax increase. Because if we don't do that, we're gonna come back on the money.
And that's, I'm sorry, Mayor, but that is on the agenda for today at 6 o'clock.
On the agenda. I will support that, and I know that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, I don't want taxes to go up, but I know what needs to be done to balance the budget. Because, like I said, 2006, 7, 8, and 9, that's deficit, because nobody wants to raise. It's like here, if you don't raise your rates for the water, wastewater, this is what's gonna happen, gentlemen, $40 million shortfall.
Let me ask you, Mayor, on the last budget at the city meeting, the deficit with a zero tax increase was 1.6 million.
I think it was more.
No, it's 1.6 million. I mean, I have it here.
Okay, I think it was. I thought it was brought it down to 799 or something like that.
I mean, unless things,
Okay, go on.
it's 1,117,344. This is, that's from,
And the 2 cents.
That's our presentation to the commission, so the tax.
yeah, so that's with a zero tax increase.
So the 2 cents would generate,
1.2, and you'd be short 700,000.
I thought it would generate 1.5.
With 2 cents tax
Yeah.
rate, I don't think,
Well, it's in
in my opinion, it won't generate $1 million.
Here, it's in here.
Okay.
I mean, I'm good at numbers, so if you permit me.
That's why you're on the finance committee.
And then I'll support the 2 cents and the reserve of the 11.3 million.
The 2 cent increase would have a deficit of 744,000.
Okay, that's right, at 799.
So, I mean, I've looked at this numbers pretty much. So that was what my question was, why $3 million and why not 1.6 million?
The 2 cents plus.
No, did you understand my question?
Yeah.
Because the request is for 3 million, but the deficit on a zero tax is 1.6 million. So I just didn't understand where the $3 million, how you reconcile the $3 million.
Charlie?
Well, part of the concern is it is 1.6 million, like you say, but part of the concern is that we're having to take away, for example, funding that we haven't in place for a bond. We're having to take a bond and break it up and utilize it to balance the budget. And I really don't wanna do that. I wanna put that money back in the bond. That bond is set aside for Morrison Road. And we need to get that. So we're patch mealing our budget right now to try to make things in.
So is it not from the debt service, this is money that you need for, capital improvement streets, is that what it is?
We put some of it into streets, yes, as long as we utilize it for streets, so our public works department will have some funding to be able to maintain momentum and operating and working on
So,
streets and drainage projects, yes.
excuse me, I just wanted to reconcile the $3 million, so
No, you're doing a good job.
1.6 million would be for the deficit, and then the other difference is to help you as to a need for Morrison Road for the additional monies that y'all are requesting.
All our revenues, everything that helps us generate funding other than the landfill is down.
Just a question. One of the questions was if by any chance the city commission does go ahead and do the 2-cent increase on taxes, then you won't need the $3 million.
Well, that's not correct, no. I would say that's not correct,
All right.
And why is that?
because that's just gonna generate maybe $800,000, $900,000. It's not gonna generate what we need.
I thought it was supposed to generate 1.2 million or something.
See,
That's
discussion with,
that's a heavy estimate, yes.
my discussion with the finance director, he told me 1.5. I understood 1.5, but I don't have the budget here for me.
It's 1.7 million.
He's got 1.7, he told me 1.5.
Well, the reason it's 1.7 million is because you're shifting 944,000 from your debt service fund to the general fund. So every time you collect property taxes, a certain percentage goes to pay off debt. So you're reducing your debt service coverage from 30% to 27%, and you're taking that money to fill in the gap on the general fund.
So based on what he told me, it was 1.5, you said 1.7, which is fine, but the 2 cents plus 11.3 million that's there, Mr. Chairman, it's there, I think we can balance the budget without affecting PDP. This way, unless we get a commitment to, I'd be willing to lend the money, unless we get a commitment that we have to deal with our problems. We're looking at a $20 million deficit.
We had a almost proposed motion here.
You ready? Well, I move in response to the city manager's letter request on behalf of the city of Brownsville dated September 10th, 2009, that the board establish an account or fund as may be appropriate from which, pursuant to the terms of an interlocal agreement between the board and the city of Brownsville may withdraw funds not to exceed $3 million during its fiscal year October 1st, 2009 through September 30th, 2010.
So I have a motion and a second. Now we can have discussions again. We pretty well discussed it.
The only question I have is the dollar amount. That is something that I just need to understand, how much of it is really needed for general fund and how much is needed for capital improvements. So that's really the only question I had, because I couldn't reconcile the need as to their deficit versus the $3 million. So that was really the only question I had.
Yeah, I think if we do an interlocal, correct me if I'm incorrect, if we do an interlocal agreement with all those questions could be answered, or, with the way that, the way, I don't know if you need to do how they're gonna spend it, or if we're gonna give it to them in a capital improvement fund, or.
I think if you do earmark the requested amount at this time, we can reconcile with the city, and based on actual need, include provisions in the interlocal to transfer that amount, to where we're not committed to the full amount, and then we can come back and reprogram the unused amount.
And the other, I guess, item on the budget, there's a $350,000 on the income. It's called a utility service energy savings that has been, I guess, that's part of their budget. And
The city of Brownsville.
the city of Brownsville's budget. And on this interlocal, I'd like to make sure that that we include support for helping the city in managing its energy consumption, because I looked at a history over the years with the city of Brownsville, it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. So whatever we can do to help the city manage its energy consumption, so it's gonna go back and give them income or savings over the long run. So on that interlocal agreement, I would just want to make sure that we add that item as part of our priority.
You have any problem amending your motion to include that?
Mr. Chairman, may I say something before we go on this?
Yeah.
You know, we've had many studies here done, and it seems that we never follow them. The city comes back and on the impact fees, we've made 3 studies. We waited to the last one, and still we didn't get the full impact of what the advisors told us. The day we had another study on the water and wastewater, and we have no commitment that the city's gonna come back and do it. I
Well,
understand that.
what we do hold over the city, Nat, is that if they don't do something to help us with our rates, they come back to us again, they're not gonna get the friendly reception they may be getting right now.
But, you know, I have a major problem with that.
And vice versa.
Well, and this is where we have to work together, and we've had disagreements before on revenue sharing, which is, but we need to start a new day, forget the past, and let's start a new day, and let's look at how we can work closely with the city. And that's why I'm saying that energy consumption is important for you. Let's work at stabilizing your energy consumption. Let's look at saving you money. So let's invest money in having you save money. And getting back to the point of Mr. Hinojosa is that our bond covenants say that if we have to meet all our bond covenants, and if we don't meet one of the bond covenants, it triggers a rate study, and it triggers going back to the city to make rate adjustments, right? Am I correct? In that? So the thing is that we really need to work together, and what's best for the city is best for the ratepayers. So I think that's.
The decision makers are you and the city commission. So you're speaking for the mayor and the commission to make decisions in relation to policies.
We can only make so
That's
many
obviously,
decisions.
that's obviously not the relationship that PUB and the city has, is when we work together. And when you bring up those $350,000, that was part of the initial conversations we had with PUB, Mr. Bujak and his staff, in relation to being able to find a way to maintain our budget and find ways to reduce the cost we have for electricity. So obviously that is still part of the budget, so that's obviously something that we're going to continue to work with.
I have a motion and a second.
Discussion. So let me ask you this, are they gonna accept the rate study? Are they gonna?
Well, that's up to the commission.
Okay, so that's not part of this.
No, that's not part of it. I have a motion and a second.
I didn't.
I have a motion.
Yes.
Yes. And a second by Mr. Vasquez. All right, basically, now I forgot the wording of the motion, but anyway, basically, to establish a fund from which the city can draw up to $3 million, depending on this interlocal agreement that the PUB staff and city manager can work out in the interim. I have a motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, I have the 3, 4, 1 nay, and 1 abstention. I'll vote aye. It passes.
My eyes, based on the fact that they won't adopt the rate study. My name.
I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chairman and board,
Thank you.
Mr. Bujak and
Thank
everyone
you,
who helped
Mr.
us out.
Chairman, may I be excused?
All right, now we're going, next item on the agenda is to go into executive for closed meeting, to report on pending litigation, under section 551.071, discuss possible, action, the future qualifying schedule, and power market services, of great, competitive and sensitive nature, under section 551.086, and discuss the possible action on real estate matters, under section 551.072. Do I have a motion to go into closed executive session? Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. But everybody who is not involved in these matters, please step outside. All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everybody please rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move to the top of the agenda, the public comment section. I believe we have one speaker, Mr. De Leon. I believe you're up.
I did provide a handout for Mr. De Leon.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honorable PUB board members, Mr. Brusiak, ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ernesto De Leon, and I come before you this afternoon to thank the PUB board, Mr. Brusiak and his staff, for making it possible for the PUB and BISD to work together mano a mano for the betterment of our community and the taxpayers especially. A few months ago, an unforeseen major problem came upon at the new Veterans Memorial High School. I serve on the BISD Bond Oversight Committee appointed by the Honorable Ms. Catalina Presas, which would have been here today, but unfortunately she's sick with the flu. She sends her regrets. Our committee was confronted with a major problem that there was not enough water pressure in case of fire. Thus, the new high school could not open its doors for classes even though the construction would have been completed. BISD staff with decision-making powers suggested entering into contract with Valley Municipal District Number 2 for potable water and sewage services. I then immediately questioned, why not use PUB? And I was told that they had tried to work with PUB and that they were much more costly than the Valley mud. The next day, I contacted Mr. Brusiak and he immediately assigned his staff to look into this matter. The rest is history, gentlemen. This is why I'm here to thank you. A lot of times you hear complaints about PUB, you seldom hear the thank you, because you have helped the taxpayers of this community big time. Mr. Brusiak, and thank you. It's a win-win situation for our community, especially the taxpayers. You have a copy that was printed in this Bond Oversight Committee meeting that took place August the 6th. It's in about the first page of this deal, and I'm glad to tell you, and you can see it on your paper. PUB working together, a savings of $929,337.70 to taxpayers was achieved. Thank you, gentlemen. May God bless you.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda will be consideration of and possible action of items discussed in the closed meeting. The only thing we had was concerning a purchase of a piece of property. I will entertain a motion to authorize the CEO and its staff to enter into a purchase agreement of approximately 2.5 acres of land as discussed in executive session. Do I have a motion?
Don't move.
Mr. Hinojosa? Second, Mr. Rivera. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. It's been approved. Item number 3, General Manager's report. Mr. Brusiak?
Just a financial report, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Okay. Mr. Garcia? Look at more numbers tonight. And we're not finished.
Mr. Chairman, and name's Alexander Garcia again, CFO for Brownsville PUB. I'll be going over the financial performance report as of July 31st, 2009. On this slide, we provide revenue information. Net operating revenues were year-to-date $140,933,484 in the right column. Gross revenues after adding in other revenues, interest, and other non-operating income totaled to $146,373,469. For the month, we had realized $17,955,900. We back out the fuel and energy costs, wholesale energy expenses, and southmost related expenses, and arrive at our adjusted gross revenues on line 12 of $86,560,427 through the end of July. This is the basis for the 10% calculation, city transfer, which calculates at $8,656,043, and the net cash of the city is $5,162,000 after taking out the COB usage. That $5,162,000 is only $266,000 shy of their annual budget, so we will probably exceed the city's expected transfer. On the expense side, total expenses totaled $41,725,520, comprising of $40 million for O&M expenses and $1.5 million for other non-operating expenses. After adding in debt service, we have total requirements, excluding fuel and southmost, of $59,973,821. That leaves a surplus for our own internal use and the city cash transfer of $23,093,436. As I mentioned, 5.1 went to the city. We retain here for our transfers out $17,930,563, which is allocated to the various accounts that the board has authorized under the 2009 budget. $833,000 to the operating reserve fund. That's towards the $1 million annual target. $3,333,334 to the fuel adjustment account. That's towards the $4 million annual target. $8.1 million for CIP funding on a total annual budget of $9.7, and then $1,250,000 on the improvement reserve fund. That's towards a $1.5 million. So through July, we're $250,000 short of meeting the overall $15 million after the August $3 million pre-funding. Then we have a surplus at the end of July here of $4.3 million. Now in August, we did take action, or the board took action to allocate $1 million from here to the capital improvement fund for vehicle and equipment CIP. So we'll be reflecting that in the August report. So in essence here we have $3,382,435. And we did see a good month in August, so that has increased by a little bit more. So that'll be available for further consideration by the board in the upcoming months. Comparing actual numbers for 2009 to actual 2008 and budget 2009, you'll see here that our actual operating revenues of $140 million were below the budget and the 2008 actual. We were $41 million below the 2008 actual at 182 versus 140. And 6.7 below the budget. A lot of this is the decrease in the fuel revenue or fuel factor, and that is an offset, so that doesn't affect operations. Gross revenues were 146.4 versus budgeted at 154.6, and actual 2008 188.7. That and so was a $42.3 million gap between the 08 and the actual 2009. Adjusted gross revenues after backing out fuel and southmost requirements we're at $86.6 million versus budgeted $84.3, and prior year $101.7. And that decrease between 2008 and current year primarily a reduction in the all-system sales as compared to last year. You can see here fuel and energy cost. PUB has enjoyed very favorable natural gas prices and purchase energy prices. We've been able to set the fuel factor at 4 cents for several months, bringing in $52.2 million in fuel and energy cost, and then 60 versus the budget at 60.1. That's $7.9 million under budget, and $24 million under the actual 2008 levels. O&M expenses, we are experiencing favorable variances there as compared to the budget, 40.2 versus 45.6. We're 5.4 under budget, 5.4 million. We are above the 2008 levels in certain areas that have required additional O&M requirements. The balance available to surplus, 23.1. Balance available for transfers out, as I mentioned, the 23.1 is shared between our own internal use, 17.9, and the city cash transfer, 5.2 million. The electric utility continues to provide the major piece of the surplus, 18.33. 1.58 comes from water and 3.19 from wastewater. On the consumption side, we did see an upward trend here. The red line for 2009 compared to our 2008 levels. We had been below the 08 levels, as you can see through June, and then through July we spiked up to 136 million kWh, well above the 127.08 levels and above the 5-year average of 122. We're still behind by 42 million, 213 kWh because of the prior month, but we more than likely will break even or exceed the 2008 levels after August and September months are presented there. Same thing with water. Water, beginning in April, we began surpassing or exceeding the 2008 levels, and for July we were at 690,520 on a per thousand gallons basis, well above the 623, 764.08 level. We are ahead year to date by 69,590 on a per thousand gallons there, compared to the same time period last year. Same thing for wastewater, 457, 478 versus the 413 there for July, and we are ahead cumulative 10,828 for the same time period. So the summer months have allowed us to either meet or exceed 2008 levels. So our revenues did see an increase compared to the earlier months. All the funds are in a positive position as of July. Precipitation levels very low, as you can see there, 0.24 compared to 13.24 in July of last year, and below the 1.77 5-year average. So it was dry through July, and of course that is a reflection in our consumption, water and wastewater, in our water consumption. Temperatures have been average pretty much in line, 87 versus 85 and 83 in prior years. We do continue to stay very competitive as compared to the other local utilities at an average of 1,000 kWh electric consumption. Average bill of 93.61 there on the list is below all other local utilities. Green Mountain and Amigo Energy do come close, but we're way below the CPNL 148.95 and all these others here. So PUB does continue to provide very competitive rates for our ratepayers.
Where's Amigo Energy?
Good question.
I think Amigo is a subsidiary of Nueces Electric Co-op. When they went and opted in, they formed a retail energy provider for it. And Nueces Electric is obviously out of Nueces County. They're electric co-op that covers that service area.
We also are providing here a graph here comparing us to other municipally owned utilities. We do fall below Austin Energy, CPS out of San Antonio, slightly under Bryan, Texas, and Denton. We do have two that are below us, Kerrville PUB, or utilities, and New Brownsville utilities.
What's their source?
I'm sorry?
Why would that be?
Fernando, you have any idea why Kerrville or New Brownsville? I know they don't generate, they have contracts.
Yeah, they have contracts with LCRA and with City of San Antonio, CPS Energy. They do not have anything that's greater than substation. They don't have transmission. They're only a distribution provider. No generation either.
On the CIP side, the board has approved an annual spending plan of 75 million. The utility has spent and encumbered 33 million, or 45%. As I mentioned regularly, a lot of these projects are multi-year, so we do fund them out of a specific fiscal year, but with an expectation for them to, after design and engineering, result in a multi-year requirement there. So 45%, although it's a little behind schedule, nonetheless, the projects will carry over into 2010. They have been considered as part of the 2010 carryover projects. And that completes the financial performance report.
All right, I can go to the next item, is that all you have?
Yes, sir.
All right. Number 4, consideration and approval of the Brownsville Public Utilities Board fiscal year 2010 interim O&M and capital budgets. Mr. Garcia.
We discussed at our workshop the overall budget requirements of $187,250,493. This is an interim budget, so the uses that have been scheduled out of this source of monies is $187,250,493, exclusive of any rate increases being proposed. Now, based on the action taken up earlier concerning the request from the city, what I do want to propose at this point is to amend the CIP piece of it. We have scheduled $9.2 million to be funded out of electric projects. What that $3 million approved for the city, what they will do is we'll take $3 million out of here and include an account here. And I think the language that was proposed for legal counsel was language pertaining to an economic stabilization sub-account. So it will be in the improvement fund. So what I'd like to amend the budget here by is to have a line here entitled Improvement Fund Sub-account dash Economic Stabilization with the $3 million approved by the board. We will maintain that $3 million, as I mentioned earlier, on account until the city demonstrates the actual need for it. It may be in 3 months, 6 months, or maybe even towards closer to year end. We will come back. There is definite needs for this $9 million. We will come back to the board to bring back those projects, or $3 million worth of projects, to be funded out of available surpluses. And as I covered in the financial, as of July, we do have $3 million. We're hoping that through the end of September, it'll continue to build to where we can come back at a later date and amend the CIP budget and bring this electric requirements back up to the $9 million, or to the requested amount. So for now, to keep a balanced budget, we're just taking $3 million out of CIP funding into the city sub-accounts, the economic stabilization accounts.
All right. Anybody have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the interim budget as amended by Mr. Garcia. Includes that other.
And you should add that it'll stay there contingent on the city and PUB arriving in, reaching an
Interlocutory.
That's
to
fine.
cover the.
Subject to further reducing to writing
All right.
the money.
I have a motion then to approve it as amended and re-amended.
I make a motion.
Mr. Padilla has made the motion. Do I have a second? Dr. Morales has made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. It is approved. Item number 5 is consideration and approval of a resolution to submit to the City Commission of the City of Brownsville a report on electric, water, and wastewater utility revenue requirements, cost of service, and rate dated August 27, 2009, and prepared by Black & Veatch, an independent rate consulting firm, which report reflects a necessity to increase water and wastewater rates and to request the City Commission to approve and adopt the rates, fees, and changes or charges recommended in the report. Mr. Garcia?
Yes, this item, based on our workshop and discussions of the rate study, requests a resolution by the board so that we can proceed to the next level and.
Requesting them to approve all 5 years, as requested by the rate study.
We can qualify, your action if that's what you.
I mean, that's what we could request, what they want to do with it.
Right, we can communicate it in that manner that the board has
I'd
requested.
like to make a motion to wait on 5 and 6. I'd like to look into them just a little bit deeper and to table these to the next meeting, I think, and just so I could, look into it further and make sure that we give them the best request possible.
I have a motion to table. Any other discussions on, well, I don't have a second yet. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a question. Is there a timeline as to when this needs to be presented?
No, the reason for bringing the interim budget was so that we could, October 1, begin the fiscal year with an authorized spending plan.
But there's no timeline that they have to go through so many workshops or public?
No, what we had envisioned is after board action is to start meeting with the commission and having joint workshops and whatever it needs to communicate and bring him up to date on the reasons, the drivers for the rate
So
increases.
it would not negatively affect?
No, no, it wouldn't. We still have,
So you're anticipating starting this rate anyway, like the 1st of January?
correct.
We have some time.
We have plenty of time. It was done to allow plenty of time for dialogue with the commission.
So the motion is to table items number 5 and 6. I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. They are items 5 and 6 are tabled.
To the next meeting?
To the next meeting. Let's flip to the next. Number 7, consideration and approval of a resolution by the Brownsville Public Utility Board of the City of Brownsville, Texas, recommending that the City of Brownsville City Commission adopt a reimbursement resolution and other matters in connection therewith. That's it.
This is an annual housekeeping item in order to demonstrate compliance with the IRS regulations. We, as a board, as an entity, need to declare our intent to reimburse PUB for out of commercial paper proceeds. We have opted to fund on an interim basis commercial paper projects with internal funds, and then as we accumulate a balance, then issue the commercial paper proceeds. And what this does is this just removes any perceived notion that we're reimbursing projects that were not part of the plan or that were conceived at a later point. So it does establish this compliance with IRS regulations. We do plan to take, because the city authorizes our debt, we do plan to take this similar resolution to the City Commission tomorrow for their authorization. And what it does is it authorizes us or declares that we will issue up to $50 million to reimburse our PUB for pre-funded or interim funded projects.
Anybody have any questions?
Is this like a line, or is it just, it's just a $50 million commercial paper program?
The overall
we
program,
can utilize throughout our funding needs for capital projects, and there's not like a line where you fully fund it and then you gotta pay it down to zero every 2 years or something?
no, this is if we, as we incur costs for projects, instead of going to market and selling commercial paper, 500,000 today, $1 million tomorrow, 300,000 next, we fund it on an interim basis with internal funds, accumulate a balance, 7 million, 10 million, go to market, issue the commercial paper, get the proceeds, and that's where PUB gets the reimbursement. Now, with the issuance of the commercial paper, that begins the tally on the 50 million. So as soon as we get to close to the 50 million, is when we convert it to long-term debt, which at this point, based on the studies from Black and Veatch and the capital improvement plans, we project to needing to convert it in 2011.
So I guess what triggers you converting the commercial paper into bond money? Is it the interest rate, or is it just?
It's a combination of having commercial paper there outstanding in the 30, 40, 45 million range, and the market.
So if the interest rate were to shoot up?
If the market is unfavorable to PUB, we just stop spending and keep that, keep that commercial paper outstanding until the market's favorable.
Any other questions? If not, then I will entertain a motion to adopt the resolution as proposed by staff. This is item number 7.
Motion.
Mr. Reyes made the motion. Second. Mr. Hinojosa. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. It is approved. Number 8, consideration and approval of hiring of consultants for the advanced metering infrastructure project.
I am going to introduce Mr. Eddie Hernandez to cover this one. He has been working with consultants in establishing the first phase of our AMI program.
Chairman, members of the board, on the summary, requests for qualifications were duly advertised by the Brownsville Public Utilities Board on June 14th and 21st of 2009. Requests for qualifications were also mailed out to 12 firms and posted on the PUB website. Sealed qualification statements were received on July 15th, 2009 from 4 firms to provide consulting services for the AMI project for Phase 1. Phase 1 will determine the scope, the budget, and the timeline of the project and include the submission of a final report with recommendation to PUB. PUB will then determine whether or not to proceed with the AMI project, and I think that is an important point. This is probably going to be a very large project. What we're looking at tonight is just the study to take a look at it, to determine the scope and the budget, and then to make a recommendation, and then the board will determine whether we proceed with the project or not. 3 firms were asked to come to PUB to present to an AMI team of approximately 20 PUB employees from various departments. A smaller BPUB review committee was formed consisting of the following areas: electrical operations, SCADA, electrical engineering, electric meter shop, water, wastewater operations, water meter shop, energy and conservation, customer and information services. The review committee met and reviewed the proposals, discussed their observations, and ranked the consulting firms. The ranking is attached. 2 of the firms, Utiliworks and RW Beck, tied in the pointing system and have been asked to present to the board of directors today. The firms will have 10 minutes to present to the board, and then staff will give its recommendations following. At this time, I'd like to ask Utiliworks to leave, and RW Beck will do their presentation.
The others are going outside.
Yes, sir. Oh, can we get that for me?
Eddie, are the TVs turned off outside in the lobby?
They're supposed to be. Otherwise, this is a waste.
The external microphone. Loudspeakers up there are off, right?
Thanks, Eddie. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, again, it's a pleasure to be here this evening. My name is Joe Mancinelli. I lead RW Beck's Management and Economics Consulting Group. I personally have been working with the PUB on a variety of projects for well over 20 years, and I will be personally responsible to make sure that RW Beck delivers our quality product on time as we have outlined in our proposal. My colleague, who has some handouts here, is Mr. David Scott. He is our project manager. David has a brief handout, and I understand we only have a short period of time, so we have a short PowerPoint presentation and handout. David also has some smart meters he's handing out. You can keep the paper handouts, but we do need the smart meters back, so. With that, I'm gonna ask David just to briefly tell you a little bit about his professional background.
Good afternoon, Board. Yes, my name is Dave Scott, and I work for R.W. Beck. I was hired by R.W. Beck 2 years ago by Joe, and I've been working with many municipal and investor-owned utilities over the last 2 years, helping them with their AMI decisions and AMI deployments in smart grid technology. Prior to my work at R.W. Beck, I worked for a company called Northeast Utilities in New England. We're 2 million electric and gas meter utility, and I was responsible for metering and meter service, and for their AMR program, which was installing meters to read with a radio, and also involved with helping them start to test AMI technology in the past few years. Professionally, I'm Vice President of Utilimetrics, which is an organization of utilities and vendors for AMI technology and smart grid technology, and also voting member of the ANSI Standards Committee for Electric Metering. Thank you.
The first slide we have here, there we go. This is basically, I think, the key to the value delivery that we would provide PUB on this project. Basically, there are basically 3 aspects to our team that I believe make us, a very powerful and valuable input provider to PUB in this process. First of all, industry-leading subject matter experts. We are literally the experts to the experts, if you might say. Our AMI and smart grid, smart metering group consults to a variety of very reputable, high-powered organizations in the industry that look at these types of issues and have been looking at these types of issues for some time. We consult for Edison Electric Institute, we consult for the National Institute of Standards and Technology, we consult for Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, just to name a few. So the point is that we have some very high-powered folks that are state-of-the-art, in the industry, well-known in the industry, and regularly contribute to the thought leadership in this industry. Secondly, intimate knowledge of PUB. As Dave's going to walk you through the scope of work here, you'll find out that a lot of this has to do with a business case, strategy, and planning. And on top of that, you have execution and delivery. And R.W. Beck, because of our relationship with PUB over the years, has a very intimate knowledge of PUB with respect to your business planning and strategy, your operations, and most importantly, your customers. We will be a provider, input provider with respect to technical expertise and business input in the whole process that Dave was going to describe. And then finally, comparable project experience. We have worked for all types of utilities, from the largest IOUs to the largest municipal utilities to smaller utilities similar in size to PUB. Dave himself has been project manager to several clients of PUB's size. We understand municipal utilities, we understand PUB, we understand the valley and your customers, and the combination of those 3 items, I think, will provide you a very valuable product.
What this slide shows is that, as Eddie had shown before, that there was 3 phases to this project, and phase 1 is what we're looking at right now, which includes what's very important in our past experience in working with utilities and projects like this is that you need to plan out a roadmap of exactly where you're going and what you're expecting out of the system. So a roadmap of development, looking at the smart grid, I'll talk a little bit more what that really means. Assessing what all of the different people involved with this technology, the impact will be on your utility and your customers. Developing the business case that we'll talk a little bit more about here. And then we also have provided some support that you might be looking for fund allocation for smart grid investment grants. The second phase, if the business case is positive, we would then support the purchase, the RFP, which is the request for purchase. It would help you evaluate the proposals from the vendors that you do get the purchase from, the proposals from, and then help you on the contract negotiations, which is very important. The third phase is to help you through the implementation and installation and the messaging. It's important that you get the right strategic message to your own folks and to your customers as far as what's going on, and then helping you throughout the process. And we've done this with many utilities around the country. What this slide here shows is that we are fully aware of what your missions and your goals are here at PUB. Your city vision as far as imagine Brownsville with the capability of energy efficiency and what this technology can bring to you, supports you in load forecasting, demand response, and time of use pricing. And then as far as the utility board, as far as your issue 2, where you have in your strategy plan implementing two-way communications to your meters, and the information that, a vast amount of information that you can get from your meters and the things that you can do with this technology. And we understand this alignment and we work with you to align your strategy going forward. What you may have heard is this term called smart grid. Sort of talked about on TV. AMI, Advanced Metering Infrastructure, is a component of the smart grid. You recognize that when you're looking at your technology, you're looking at a business case and your strategy, you've got to look at the whole picture and where you're going. And there's a piece of generation, transmission, distribution, and your customers all connected together, which this advanced metering technology or two-way communication gives you from your meters to help support all of these different components in your system. This may not be supported on day one when you install AMI, but you need to have a vision of where it's going to go, and you want to buy a system, if it is economical, that will support all of these things going forward in the future. This table here shows that when we're helping you do a business case, we have experience in receiving and looking at bids from many other utilities and from around the country. We look at the costs that are associated with the different technologies, and we look at the benefits associated with the installation of such a technology. There are quantifiable benefits such as reduced expenses associated with the capabilities from the AMI meters. And the meters that we left for you on the table there can do so many different things. It's more than just meter reading. It's collecting information, sharing information with your customers so you know more about how electricity was used. It can even tell you when power is lost, so you know before the customer calls that you actually have power loss there, and you can already have your trucks rolling. So the technology gives you capabilities to help you reduce your expenses and to help provide better customer services for your customers with this. It helps you in your service center, it helps you with your billing processes, it helps you with distribution automations. You know where all your power is flowing. Also, it helps in the revenue side of things as far as capturing revenue related to how electricity is being used or how your water is being used. This AMI technology not only supports electric, but also obviously is supporting the water and collects the water information. And generally what you're getting is hourly information from every single electric and water meter and helps support all of this type of information. And in Texas here, and a lot of our experiences in Texas, there's an initiative going on by an investor-owned utilities to deploy this technology to support demand response programs or lifetime use programs. This will enable you to also be able to participate and offer those same type of services to your customers. There's also intangible benefits associated with this, with better customer service, and helps you plan and be able to build for the future down the road. The RW Beck team brings a lot of experience to you. I have experience myself in deploying an AMR technology in New England of over 2 million points, and also supporting other utilities, which I'll tell you a little bit more in a minute. But also part of the team, we have folks such as Mark Gabriel there on the left, who's a speaker who speaks nationally to many conferences and has written many papers on a smart grid subject. And also in the water area, down below in the middle there, Don Schlinger, a new addition to RW Beck just 6 months ago, is recognized as a leading expert in the water AMI business.
Scott, your 10 minutes are up. Hate to cut you short, but it's been a long meeting already. You have 10 minutes, so wind it up, please.
Yes, we're just about done. Thank you very much. This is just a sampling from clients, Bryan, Texas, which you're very familiar with. We help with their AMI decisions. These are other utilities, Danville Utilities, which I'm project manager, Lafayette, Louisiana, Sacramento in California. And these are the institutions that we also help support. And with this, I'll turn it back to Joe to close the presentation.
Yeah, I apologize for going over. This is our last slide, but basically, we have a very strong project team. I personally will be involved, making sure that the product is delivered, as I said, successfully. We work for a lot of utilities like PUB. We understand the city's needs and the PUB strategic plan, and this is really a strategic decision. This is not about the meter. It's not about a metering project. It's about where PUB is going in the future, how you're going to interact with your customers, and key issues related to energy efficiency, customer service, reliability, et cetera. So with that, any questions, we'd be happy to answer. And we again apologize for going over.
Thank you very much. Hey, you want to get your meter?
Yes, thank you very much.
Utility works, I believe that.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to come to present to you for our corporation. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Dale Pennington. I'm the Managing Director for UtilWorks, and I'm based out of New York. We have people based also in Lafayette, Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Tennessee, spread out all over the country. We want to spend a little time first to explain to you why we should be selected, what we bring to help you going through this very critical decision of AMI and what it will offer you. First is, from our view, what do we understand about your utility? What have you accomplished, and what should we be here to help you with? First is, what is the value of the system that you're in charge of managing and taking care of? Almost in every city that we've engaged in AMI, it became very critical to understand that the asset itself as a replacement value is probably between $2 to $3 billion. That's very critical because AMI is a core component in being able to properly manage this sort of asset. So it's important to get to the first base of what is the asset worth, what should we do with this asset, how do we make it perform and optimize. And when we look at you, we also understand that one of the goals is to help you manage a revenue stream that you currently achieve from this asset itself. Being over $180 million in revenue is a significant amount of revenue to be able to manage and effectively utilize throughout your community. And it was very clear early on when we started to study your town and your city and the people that you're servicing, that as many other places, there's the same problem that we all have. What is the losses, and how are we going to improve that? Because everything that we lose within our systems that we've built, created, and managed is obviously lost expense. So the first thing we do when we start to work with it and do an assessment and help the city determine where it wants to go forward is, what can we improve on? How will the system improve the losses and control our infrastructure better, especially when we value the infrastructure at such a high number? So it's important for UtiliWorks to first do the review process and understand, what does the community have, how is it managed, what's the overall value of it, and how can we help it to improve? How will the new systems, the AMI systems, help that occur? So we look very closely at also your goals and aspirations as a community. One, you wanted quality and reliability to be the cornerstone of running a utility. What are we doing? How do we manage it? How does it produce? So in essence, we clearly see that this is going to be a driving force in your future. If you want to be one of the most effective utilities, you really need to understand what's happening with your utility across the board every single day. How much do we produce? How much do we sell? What are our differentiations? And what will the AMI data tell us about repairing and improving our infrastructure to reduce costs and get rid of operational inefficiencies? So it's very clear that this is a goal that you have stated, and we felt that we could help you to respond to that goal. So when we look at it as an overall structure with smart metering, what are you trying to manage and what are you trying to accomplish? There's three core pieces of it in many of the cities we work with. One is, how is the asset being utilized? Are we at a high level of asset utilization, or are we at a low level? Is the asset and all the capital improvements and money we put into it being fully functional? Are there areas we may have losses that we should account for and repair? The other issue that's coming across the United States in any city that we work with is, how are we conserving natural resources and how are we managing natural resources? In today's world, when you look at comparing utilization and finding that people see 10% utilization losses, sometimes 12, sometimes 20, sometimes 40, it's become one of the core issues is, how do we improve the utilization of the resources that you're using, especially water, which is becoming of a higher demand throughout the country. So part of the whole structure of AMI would be to address asset utilization, at the same time starting to bring in the methodologies of conservation and resource management that you want to adhere to. And of course, the third part is customer service. How do we use this program to help our customers, to inform our customers, and make the environment, as I see mentioned here, greener? Well, you can only do that through more information and better communication and better understanding of how your asset is performing. I wanted to go briefly just in our team and give you a few ideas of the people we bring together. We've been in business for a number of years now, focused solely on this space, the AMI smart grid environment. We have a multitude of different people that would come in and help the facility here be managed. One would be myself. I am always involved in every project throughout the United States and projects that we've done overseas in Israel and other places. We have people that are solution architects who help design the infrastructure program. We have very advanced business process managers and project managers who will be here all the time to support you as you move forward. Why us? Above all the other competition, why choose UtiliWorks? One is, I'm sorry where that's grainy, but from the RFQ, the successful consulting firm shall be objective, shall not be directly associated with AMI vendors, shall understand the AMI industry, technologies, costs, and benefits, and have experience assisting other municipalities with the smart grid AMI selection process. We are 100% compliant on that. We have done this, we've built RFPs, we've had systems installed, we've designed the technology, we go visit the vendors, we actually go to the manufacturing facilities to really look at the quality control structures they put in place for products that you'll have to live with for over 30 years. We are very unique in that sense. We also have a team that is only dedicated to this. We are not an engineering firm that branches out into other businesses. We really are a AMI smart grid company. That's where we want to be, that's where we're going to stay. So when you look at us, we'd like you to understand that that's our focal point. And that as we evaluate and visit all these different places, we're always currently upgrading and monitoring the technology because it's constantly changing. The devices that were out in the field 5 years ago are nowhere near compared to what's now available. And we are committed from the top to bottom. The people that come in here will be here. They'll be staying here. We have proven experiences. Our references are second to none. Our company is constantly being requested. It does present at all major AMI Smart Grid conferences. We work with the Department of Defense and Energy Management. We've been working with municipalities across the United States. And you are in our core market space. The size of this opportunity is where we really feel we excel. You're not too big, you're not too small, but it's perfect for us. We find we can be very, very effective in this kind of structure. And people do like working with us. If you call our references, you're going to find everybody will say the same thing, that we work hard, we're dedicated, and we want to make this successful for you. And it's critical to understand the technology and be able to work with team members that we have to encompass within this organization. And we are an extension of your staff. So as we get involved, we'll be able to manage different processes. We will constantly educate everybody within the building that we come in contact with, because the idea is to transfer knowledge base into your community and help this utility be more successful as it moves forward in AMI. And we are globally recognized for our expertise. We are constantly speaking and represented throughout the U.S. I do want to let you know that right up the road, San Marcos, which is a utility not too far from you, this is where we had actually won the best project of the year, this year, 2009, from one of the largest conferences in the United States in this subject material. That was the team members we worked with, and we were Smart Meter Project of the Year for Distributech 2009. That was back in February. And we competed against every other big boy, the IBMs and everyone else. But because we're so focused, we were able to accomplish that goal. So in understanding your needs, the project task is outlined to us. We're very clear. Develop a technology roadmap, develop a smart grid metering vision, stakeholder assessment, development of a smart metering AMI business case, request for proposals, participate in evaluations, support the negotiations, implementation and planning, and strategic messaging. There's not one thing on there that we have not done and have done a multitude of times and been very successful at. So we're comfortable with what you need to help you in this decision process, and we have been very successful in meeting those goals. This was the financial proposal we gave in request, and all the task items are listed. The only one that hasn't been structured yet is Task 5, which is the federal 58 grant for smart grids. And we have already done this for other cities. We've built those proposals. We have got recognized by the Department of Energy as one of the most thorough and sophisticated smart grid designs in the country. So we have documentation to support all the different things that we've already done. But every goal that you're asking, every task, we have accomplished and done in other cities, some right up the road from you. I just want you to realize we also come in and try to set the right goals and framework to help everybody. We want you to look at what are we trying to accomplish here. We're trying to manage $180 million in revenue a year and know where that revenue is coming from every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Reduce customer service issues, get that down by 75%, which we've been very successful at because it's engaging your customers and helping them to know what they're using every day that will bring those reductions. Real-time emergency responses, elimination of safety issues, daily revenue to help you plan your budgets better. We are constantly looking at improvement on asset performance. Every time we can bring your asset to become a little more performant, it means that you're putting more money on the bottom line and you're doing a better job for the citizens of this community. And we are always looking at proactive customer service. How do we help customers be more effective in understanding what they're utilizing? And a clear understanding of what is your consumption versus what is your production. And those are the areas we typically really bring the money back home. If we can reduce losses, both electrical line losses and water losses, it goes right to the bottom line of any utility. So I know we had only 10 minutes. If there's any questions, we have some supporting documentation behind this, of course, but.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, staff is asking us to make a recommendation to hire one of these firms as consultant on the AMI. Anybody have any comments that they'd like to make at this time? Is Archie Beck and Utilworks?
Utilworks. That's, and y'all recommend?
Yeah,
Works with the chart, yeah.
the team met and they did tie on the scoring. When we sat down and talked to the team and reviewed, the team did feel that it should come up with a recommendation, and our recommendation, our choice would be UtiliWorks. We like their approach a little bit better. RW Beck is a fine firm, and we have nothing against them. If the board should feel that that's the way to go, that's perfectly fine, but our recommendation would be UtiliWorks.
I was noticing your scoring was almost, well, it was identical. The only higher preference was that RW Beck had prior experience with it.
Correct.
But they got, UtiliWorks got a better response as per our RFPs. And so, I'd also like a little variety in our, we use RW Beck a lot. And so, I personally, I think I would go for UtiliWorks. But anyway, anybody want to make comments or a motion?
Where is your UtiliWorks from? Where are they from?
My understanding is their office is out of Lafayette, Louisiana.
And RW Beck?
Um,
All over?
Denver typically is their main office.
So location, as to their office locations?
No, and it would, I don't think it'd be an issue with either firm.
Do I have a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept staff recommendation for UtiliWorks.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Vasquez and second by Dr. Morales to hire consulting as UtiliWorks. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We have our recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Okay. Number 9, consideration and approval of Brownsville Public Utilities Board Director and officers, errors and omissions, and umbrella liability insurance.
Chairman, members of the board, the renewal process for the PUB's directors and officers and umbrella liability insurances was initiated with a request to submit renewal quotes from Associated Electric and Gas Insurance. BPUB insurance consultant Ken Withy with Withy and Associates conducted an analysis of the renewal quotes. Mr. Withy has recommended the renewal as outlined in the attachments. Directors and officers, errors and omissions for $49,514.37 with Associated Electric and Gas Insurance and agent Shepherd Walton King. Umbrella liability for $304,776.14 with Associated Electric and Gas Insurance and agent Shepherd Walton King. The proposals represent a total of $354,290.51 and an increase of $39,714 or a 12.6% increase in the premiums. Coverages remain the same. This is the second year of a 3-year contract with the option to renew each year. The current coverage expires October 1st, 2009. Brownsville PUB staff recommends renewal of the directors and officers, errors and omissions, and umbrella liability insurances as recommended by Withy and Associates for a total not to exceed $254,290.51. Mr. Withy and Raul Cavazza and Arnetta Oropesa with Shepherd Walton and King are present should the board have any questions or need additional information.
Any particular reason why the increase of 39,000 officers? That's just a general increase in insurance costs.
Yes, we have a table that points out some of the items that went into the reason for the renewal increase. A major driver is that the insurance company is a mutual insurance company. And a mutual insurance company means that the policy holders have ownership of the company, and they would return the premium if they had favorable years. In the past, you have received credit. It's called continuity credit. For the renewal for this year, that continuity credit refund was reduced by 50%. It would be a factor of the economic times we're in, where they were not receiving a return on the investments they would have in the reserves, as well as the general nature of the economy. So the base increase for the directors and officers liability insurance was 2% increase, which in my opinion is a reasonable increase in today's market. And then with the reduction in the continuity credit, that changed a 2% increase to a 12.1% increase. With regard to the umbrella liability, there had been a continuity credit of roughly $8,700 a year, and they were not able to apply that continuity credit for this year. So the base increase was 9%, but because of not being able to give the continuity credit, that amounted to a 12.7%. So the blended increase for both lines of coverage is then 12.6%.
Anybody have any questions? Not only entertain a motion to approve the recommendation by PUB staff and Mr. Whitney to go with the policy not to exceed $354,290.51. Have a motion? Dr. Morales made a motion. Second. Second by Mr. Vasquez. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. It's been approved.
Thank you.
And they have assured me that they're going to check and make sure that we're covered under for any potential security violations. Some issue that might have come up tonight.
Okay. Item number 10, consideration and approval of Brownsville Public Utility Board, general liability, automobile, mobile equipment, crime, and excess workers' compensation insurance.
Chairman, members of the board, the renewal process for PB's general liability, auto, mobile equipment, crime and excess workers' compensation insurance was initiated with a request to the Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Risk Pool, TML, to submit renewals. Since PUB uses TML interlocal agreement for these insurances, then PUB is not required to go through the competitive bid requirements. The TML position for exemption from the Texas competitive bidding statutes is based on the following. TML Intergovernmental Risk Pool is not insurance, but is a self-insured program established by local entities through an interlocal agreement. Under Chapter 791.025C of the Texas Government Code for Interlocal Cooperation Contracts, a local government that purchases goods and services under this section satisfies the requirement of the local government to seek competitive bids for the purchase of goods and services. The exemption from the competitive bidding requirements was conferred by PUB legal counsel. An analysis of the renewal proposals was conducted by PUB consultant Ken Withy with Withy and Associates. General liability, $55,245. Automobile liability, $52,736. Mobile equipment, $8,662. Crime, $1,698, and excess workers' compensation for $111,034. This represents a total of $229,375 and an increase of $1,510, or a 0.7% increase in the premiums. The current coverage expires October 1st, 2009. The renewal information is shown in the attachments. PUB does not use an insurance agent or agency for these insurances. Brownsville PUB staff recommends approval of the PUB's general liability, automobile, mobile equipment, crime, and excess workers' compensation insurance as recommended by Withy and Associates for a total not to exceed $229,375. Mr. Withy and Mr. Luis Valdez with TML are present should the board have any questions or need additional information.
Any questions? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the recommendation of staff to exceed not more than $229,375.
So move to accept that recommendation.
I have a motion by Mr. Vasquez. Do I have a second? Second by Dr. Morales. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. It has been approved. I have a note that item number 11, requesting it be tabled till the next meeting. Anybody have any objections to that? I will entertain a motion to table to the next meeting.
Move that we table item number 11.
I have a motion by Mr. Farias. Do I have a second? Mr. Nahida seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 12, consideration and approval of bid award of 10,000 feet of 500 MCM, 15 kilovolt copper underground cable. Mr. McCann?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. PUB purchasing open bids on August the 13th for 500 MCM 15 kV copper underground cable. Invitations were advertised in the Brownsville Herald on July 19th and July 26th, posted on the PUB website and mailed to 32 vendors with 12 vendors responding. The conductor will be used for extending feeders to increase capacity at various PUB substations over the next 6 months. Low bid came from ICC Cable. However, they cannot deliver within a reasonable time frame. Therefore, staff recommends a bid award to the vendor that meets all the PUB requirements, Texas Electric Cooperative.
I make a motion to approve.
Just for the record, ICC Cable indicated 12 to 14 weeks, while Texas Electric Co-op talked about 5 to 7 days.
Yes,
That's
sir.
right. All right, I have a motion by Mr. Fayez to accept the staff recommendation. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Nakano. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. It's been approved. Now we get to the
For the
consent
record-
items. There are 6
For the record, the lowest bid did not meet.
did not meet the specifications requirement of timely delivery. All right, we have 16 items on consent items. Does anybody need to remove any of these items?
Pull 15 for casting lots.
Pull number 15. Just table it.
I'll pull it out. We need to cast lots. There's some
Oh,
Two
okay.
people died,
No.
and so they have to,
All right, as for items 1 through 14 plus 16, I will entertain a motion to approve those items as proposed and recommended.
So moved.
Mr. Foster.
I have a question on the temporary employment, project.
Which one's that?
I saw it, I don't remember the number.
number three.
number three.
Number 3?
All right, we'll go ahead and pull number 3 at this time. I'll do 1, 2, 4 through 14, and 16. Did I get a motion?
Moved.
By Mr. Farias, and a second by Mr. Vasquez. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Let's go ahead and let's do number 3 then. Consideration and approval of personal technical service of temporary personnel.
This item seeks approval to go ahead and pay the temporary service for some temporaries. We engaged welders and fitters to complete some jobs for our water and wastewater operations. These services have been provided. We exceeded the 50,000, so we're coming to the board after the fact. We did, after recognizing that the employees were going to be needed for an even longer time, have discontinued the engagement with the temporary service and engagement and hired them as temporaries of PUB. But they will continue for probably another 6 months.
So you had fitters, welders, and you also had painters?
No, they were actually welders, but they also did some specialized painting for the projects. Judy, if you want to cover that.
Did an excellent job.
No, I was just asking, I'm not pursuing the quality.
Good evening, members of the board. This is specialized painting for piping in wastewater plants, north plant, the south plant, the water plants. It's just specialized painting, it's just not regular painting. We're talking about the welding projects that were done. They went ahead and had to do specialized painting on the particular piping and all the other things that they did at the water plants and the sewer plants.
Good. It wasn't explained here, that's why I'm asking. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Anybody have any other questions?
I move we accept item number 3.
I have a motion to accept item number 3.
Second.
Second by Dr. Morales. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And we'll go to item number 15. And this item 15 calls for casting of lots because we have two equal bids. Board to cast lots award vendor in the amount of $31,315 for items 3PT Delta Y Electric, Sledgeville, Missouri. And, okay. What do we get? Preister, Mel, and Nicholson, San Antonio, Texas.
Priester, Mel, and Nicholson.
Sorry?
Priester, Mel, and Nicholson.
Mel and Nicholson. And is that all we have to do, or did we have to approve the rest of the vendors?
Yeah, the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, the motion should be that,
Motion be to recommend approval of bid award to purchase, pole mount and pole mount transformers to low bidders as follows. $31,315 for item 3PT.
that was the.
Price from Mel Nicholson. Delta Y Electric, Sedgwickville, Missouri, the amount of $159,485. And Texas Electric Cooperative of Georgetown, Texas, the amount of $530,474 for a grand total not to exceed $721,247. I have a motion to accept and the second by Dr. Morales. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, the ayes have it. Any other items on the agenda? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. All right. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.